The mistakes most people make in their first months of training are not about effort. They are about information. And the cost of those mistakes is not just wasted time. It is a relationship with fitness that becomes harder to sustain the longer the wrong foundation goes uncorrected. If this is your first time here, subscribe and share this with someone who is just starting out or has been training without seeing the progress they expected. What gets explained in this channel is what most fitness content assumes you already know, and most people never get told. Think back to the first time someone walked into a gym, or started a home workout program, or decided that this was the moment they were going to take their body seriously. The motivation was real. The intention was genuine. And the plan, such as it was, came from whatever combination of YouTube videos, social media posts, and second-hand advice had accumulated into something that felt like enough to begin. What almost nobody had at that point was the information that would have made the first 6 months genuinely productive. Instead of a mixture of progress, confusion, unnecessary soreness, inconsistent results, and the quiet erosion of initial motivation that happens when effort is not being directed by accurate understanding. This is not about fitness secrets or advanced techniques. It is about the foundational knowledge that changes how the entire process is experienced. The understanding that, if it had been present from the beginning, would have compressed years of trial and error into months of directed progress. The soreness, misunderstanding that derails beginners. The first week of training for most beginners ends with a level of muscle soreness they were not prepared for. And the way they interpret and respond to that soreness sets the trajectory for whether the habit survives the first month. Delayed onset muscle soreness, the stiffness and discomfort that peaks 24 to 72 hours after a training session, is not an indicator of workout quality. It is an indicator of novelty. The body produces this inflammatory response when muscle tissue has been subjected to mechanical demands it has not previously encountered. And it is most severe precisely when someone is brand new to training, not because the workout was particularly effective, but because everything was unfamiliar. This creates a dangerous misunderstanding in both directions. Beginners who experience severe soreness after their first session often believe they have done something exceptional, that the severity of the discomfort corresponds to the quality of the stimulus. They then attempt to replicate or exceed that level of discomfort in subsequent sessions, creating a cycle of excessive volume, insufficient recovery, and the burnout or injury that follows. Beginners who experience minimal soreness after their first few weeks, once initial novelty has passed, often conclude that their training is no longer working, that the absence of significant soreness means the sessions are not productive. They then increase volume, change programs repeatedly searching for that early discomfort, and never allow any single training approach to persist long enough to produce the adaptations that consistency builds. Soreness is a poor metric for training effectiveness. The accurate metrics are performance, whether the weights are increasing, the reps are climbing, the movement quality is improving. Those are the indicators that adaptation is occurring. Soreness tells you what was novel. Performance tells you what is working. The program hopping trap. Here is the mistake that costs more accumulated progress than almost any other in the first year of training. And it is driven by a psychological response so understandable that most people never recognize it as a mistake while they are making it. A beginner starts a program. The first 2 to 3 weeks produce noticeable results because the body is in the peak novelty phase of adaptation. Every session is a new demand, and the neurological and metabolic responses are rapid and visible. Then the progress slows, not because the program stopped working, but because the fastest phase of initial adaptation has completed and the body has begun the slower, more demanding work of genuine structural change. At this point, the program feels like it has stopped working. Motivation drops. Something new appears in the feed, a different approach, a different structure, something that promises the rapid progress the current program no longer seems to be providing. The switch is made, and the cycle begins again. The new program provides 2 to 3 weeks of rapid progress because it is novel. Then it slows. the switch happens again. What this person is actually doing is repeatedly harvesting the first phase of adaptation, the neurological and metabolic novelty response, while never staying with any single program long enough to reach the phase where genuine hypertrophy and structural strength develop. That phase requires 8 to 12 weeks of consistent exposure to the same stimulus with progressive overload applied. It is slower and less dramatic than the initial novelty phase. It is also where the real results live. The most valuable thing a beginner can be told about program selection is this: choose something with compound movements, progressive overload built in, and adequate recovery between sessions. And then do not change it for 12 weeks, regardless of how it feels in weeks 4 through 8. The weeks that feel like nothing is happening are almost always the weeks where the most significant internal adaptation is occurring. Technique is not a beginner concern. It is the beginner concern. Most people beginning their fitness journey treat technique as something to worry about later, after they have built some base fitness, after they have learned the movements from experience, after they are stronger and more comfortable in the gym. They treat the first months of training as a period where imperfect movement is acceptable because everything is new. This is one of the most consequential misunderstandings in beginner training, and its consequences compound over time in ways that are difficult and sometimes impossible to fully reverse. Movement patterns are learned through repetition. Every time a squat is performed with a forward collapsing knee and a rounded lower back, that pattern is being reinforced in the nervous system. Every time a bench press is executed with a wide grip and flared elbows, that mechanics is being practiced into habit. The brain does not distinguish between correct and incorrect movement during the learning phase. It simply becomes more efficient at whatever movement is being repeated. By the time most people reach the loads where poor technique becomes injurious, the pattern is so deeply ingrained that correcting it requires deliberately unlearning a movement that has been practiced hundreds or thousands of times. This is significantly harder than learning the correct pattern from the beginning. And the window for learning the correct pattern with minimal resistance is the early months of training, when loads are manageable and the nervous system is in its highest state of movement. Learning receptivity. Learning correct technique before adding significant load is not a limitation on progress. It is the condition under which sustainable progress is possible. The 6 to 8 weeks spent learning to squat, hinge, press, and pull with genuine mechanical integrity before chasing heavier weights is the most productive 6 to 8 weeks a beginner can invest. Because the strength built on a sound movement foundation scales without limit, while the strength built on poor movement eventually hits the ceiling imposed by injury. What consistency actually means, and why most people get it wrong. The word consistency appears in virtually every piece of fitness advice ever written. Show up consistently. Be consistent with nutrition. Consistent effort produces consistent results. It has been repeated so often that it has become meaningless, a filler word that conveys urgency without providing the specific understanding required to actually apply it. Here is what consistency means in a physiological context that most beginners are never given. Muscle adaptation is a cumulative biological process. The body does not respond to individual sessions. It responds to the pattern of sessions across weeks and months. The repeated signal that a specific demand is not temporary but persistent, not occasional but regular, not something to be accommodated for a week, but a new baseline condition that requires structural adaptation to manage. A person who trains intensely for 3 weeks and then misses 2 weeks does not simply pause their progress during the gap. They partially reverse the recent adaptations. Muscle protein synthesis elevations, neural efficiency improvements, cardiovascular adaptations, all of these begin declining within days to weeks of training cessation. The body's governing principle is efficiency, and it will not maintain adaptations for demands that are no longer being consistently presented. This means that the minimum effective frequency for maintaining and building on training adaptations is regular enough that the body never fully reverses the previous session's signal before the next session arrives to reinforce it. 2 to 3 sessions per week, maintained across months without the extended gaps that complete partial reversals, is far more productive than 5 sessions a week, for 3 weeks followed by 2 weeks of nothing. The beginner who trains twice a week every week for a year will outperform the beginner who trains 5 times a week intermittently across the same period. Not because of the sessions performed, but because of the unbroken signal delivered to the body's adaptation systems across an uninterrupted 12 months. Consistency is not intensity. It is not perfection. It is the unbroken repetition of the stimulus across enough time for the adaptation to compound into something visible and lasting. Conclusion. Before the first workout, the information that would have changed everything is not complicated. It does not require an advanced understanding of exercise science or years of experience to apply. It requires knowing that soreness is not the measure of progress. Performance is. That program consistency across 12 weeks produces more than program variety across 12 weeks. That technique is the first investment, not a later concern. And that twice a week without interruption over a year is worth more than 5 times a week with chronic gaps. These are not advanced concepts. They are the foundational understanding that most beginners never receive, and whose absence costs months and sometimes years of effort that produced a fraction of what it could have with the right information underneath it. The gym is not the hard part. Understanding what the gym is actually doing to the body and how to direct that process intelligently, that is what changes the experience from frustrating to genuinely rewarding. Start with that understanding, and let the effort that was always there finally land somewhere it can produce the results it deserved from the beginning. If this is the kind of content that would have changed how you started, subscribe and share it with someone at the beginning of their journey. The channel is built on one commitment: give people the real explanation behind the result, not just the instruction to show up and try harder.